evening. Welcome to the Brother Eel Show. It's going to be explosive tonight. We got some updates on the some global updates on the war, um, elections, and plenty much more. I think we'll start off with on the attempted assassination on Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. We'll talk about a little bit about Ukraine, obviously a little bit about the election, and some more sports and other things of that nature. But some of the top of the hour, we got to tap into the Iranians. They took a look at um, the prime minister from Israel, the Israeli state, Zionist state. They sent a drone to try to blow his house up, basically. Um, we also got the BRICS. The BRICS came together. I forgot about the BRICS. We got to talk about BRICS and see exactly what's the impact to the U.S. But let's go and tap in and let's
has launched a probe after highly classified U.S. intelligence documents were posted online showing Israel's taking steps to launch a retaliatory attack on Iran. One document came from the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the other from the NSA, the National Security Agency. The documents reference recent Israeli drills involving air-launched ballistic missiles as well as drone activity. On Friday, President Biden was asked if he knew how and when Israel would attack Iran. Biden responded by saying yes, and complaint with the nuclear watchdog over Israeli threats to strike Iran's atomic energy sites in retaliation for a series of Iranian missiles that were fired into Israel earlier this month. Iran's foreign ministry issued a statement today saying, quote, threats to attack nuclear sites are against UN resolutions and are condemned, unquote. This comes as a drone hit Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's seaside home Saturday in the northern Israeli town of Caesarea. Netanyahu and his family were not home at the time of the incident, which caused superficial damage to his home. He shared this video on social media after the attack.
Prime Minister, how is it going?
Well, 2 days ago, we took out Yahya Sinwar, the terrorist mastermind whose goons beheaded our men, raped our women, burnt babies alive. We took him out, and we're continuing our battle with Iran's other terrorist proxies. We're going to win this war.
So will something deter you?
No.
That was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking to his aide. The prime minister also wrote on social media, quote, the attempt by Iran's proxy Hezbollah to assassinate me and my wife today was a grave mistake. I say to Iran and its proxies and its axis of evil, anyone who tries to harm Israel's citizens will pay a heavy price, Netanyahu said. For more, we go to Tehran, to Iran, where we're joined by Hassan Ahmadian, assistant professor of West Asian and North African Studies at the University of Tehran. Professor, we welcome you to Democracy Now! If you can start off by responding to what Netanyahu said, blaming agents of Iran for the attack, though Iran disavowed responsibility for the attack on his seaside home. We may have lost Professor Ahmadian. I think he's coming back right now. Why don't we break and we'll see if we can get back in touch with Professor Ahmadian, who is in Tehran, Iran. I think we have him. Professor Ahmadian, thank you for joining us. Can you respond to what Netanyahu said, that agents of Iran were responsible for the attack on his seaside home? If you can respond.
Yes. Well, I think Bibi Netanyahu has been trying to portray everything that's happening in Gaza and Lebanon, around the region, as part of Iran's act. Whereas we all know it's a fact now that Iran didn't know about the 7th of October attack. And then its allies fighting Israel for their various national reasons, they are supported by Iran, but it doesn't mean that they act on behalf of Iran. But obviously, Bibi's eyeing another game. He wants to see a confrontation bigger than his surrounding. He wants the U.S., Iran to be dragged into a conflict, I think. That's why he's pointing always to Iran. In the beginning of his campaign on Gaza, he was focused on Gaza. And then when he wanted to widen the war, he started to point at Iran, and he started hitting Iranian targets. First came the Iranian consulate, then Iran retaliated. Then came the assassination in Tehran of Ismail Haniyeh in the inauguration day of a new president in Iran. Then Iran waited for a diplomatic settlement that Amos Hochstein and the Americans channeled to Iran that they are after, and they're using this assassination for a ceasefire there. The Iranians waited for 2 months only to be surprised by Netanyahu moving to Lebanon, assassinating, and the pager attack, the walkie-talkie attack, and the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. All of this came after Iran waited for a diplomatic settlement in Gaza. And then Iran decided that that's enough, we need to retaliate, otherwise our deterrence will be at stake. Obviously, to my understanding, Netanyahu is inching closer to, a confrontation with Iran. The Iranians have said time and time again that they will retaliate. They have been retaliating. Now he's talking about retaliating against Iran's retaliation, which is basically escalation ladder. He's on and he's trying to tell the world that it's Iran that is the provocateur. Whereas in Iran, everyone feels the way that Bibi Netanyahu is trying to frame Iran internationally. And as such, they are focusing on telling the world that we will not go for a war, we will not go for a confrontation, but if it's enforced upon us, we will have to retaliate, otherwise our deterrence will not work, and then it will be an open season in Tehran, maybe.
So, Professor, can you comment on these leaked U.S. documents, intelligence documents, describing satellite images of Israeli military preparations for a potential strike in Iran? You also have the foreign ministry coming out today in Tehran, speaking out and saying it would be illegal to attack nuclear plants in Iran, according to the United Nations. If you can comment on all of this, the intelligence documents, not clear how they were leaked, coming from, among other places, the NSA, the National Security Agency, the intelligence agency in the United States that's many times larger than the CIA.
We still don't know what the intricacies of these leaks, but obviously if they are intentional or not intentional, the leaking, it makes a difference. I mean, the messaging or the message of them being linked will be different. But in any case, I think the Iranians are saying that these leaks show that the Israelis are trying to attack, places of strategic. That these leaks show that the Israelis are trying to attack, places of strategic importance that are legally, should not be attacked, but Israel is obviously trying or inching closer to attack them. It's within the Iranian, international or diplomatic reach, which the foreign minister and the president have been on the past few weeks, telling the world that we don't want escalation, but obviously the Israelis are coming to force it upon us, and we will have to retaliate. The legality of the issue is obvious. I mean, it's illegal as per international law to attack. I mean, the Atomic Energy Agency charter. It's very obvious that it's not legal to attack such places. But I mean, the Israeli policy in assassinating scientists, killing a guest in an inauguration day in Iran, all the policies that have been pulled off previously were illegal as well. So the Iranians know that this is not going to affect the situation, but they are telling the world, these are the evidence. We're not after this escalation, but look at Israel and what it's going to provoke Iran and its allies to retaliate.
Professor Ahmadjian, can you talk very briefly about Iran-Saudi relations and how that plays into this? Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi was in Riyadh earlier this month, and the fact that the 180 ballistic missiles that were shot into Israel killed one person, a Palestinian in Jericho, but these were 180 ballistic missiles. Is Iran actually coordinating this, sharing information with the United States?
I'm not sure that is the case, especially the second attack that Iran, the retaliation that Iran did in October 1st. The first one was coordinated. Iran told the world and the United States and indirectly Israel as well that we will attack in this timing. It was basically a political messaging that we can beat you, we can hit you, but we don't want escalation, so don't push us. The second attack for October 1st was of a military nature. The Iranians showed their muscles, telling the Israelis, you're playing with fire, we can do this. Today, the message was that we can fire 7,000 missiles a day to deter Israel. But basically, the narrative is that we don't want escalation, but we are capable of fighting. When it comes to Saudi Arabia and the GCC in general, the Iranians are trying hard to keep them away from, basically assisting Israel, and also keep the warming up of the relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia ongoing. The Iranians and the Saudis both have been pushing for a ceasefire in Gaza. The Saudis embarked on a diplomatic, campaign with the Europeans, with the Americans for months now to stop the conflict in Gaza. The Iranians trying to push, saying that we don't want that the Israelis are widening the war and that this will be catastrophe it was a political messaging campaign and also pushing back against Israeli provocation as the Iranians see them. Both have been basically met in the aim of stopping the Gaza war. And I think the relationship has been enhancing unexpectedly. Basically, the war in Gaza have brought Iran and Saudi Arabia, at least publicly and in the narrative, much closer than where we were when they were before the October 7th. And both, as I said, they are aiming for the same target, that is the stop of the onslaught on Gaza and
Ahmadjian, I want to thank you for being with us, Assistant Professor of West Asian and North African Studies at the University of Tehran, speaking to us from Tehran, Iran, previously associate with the Project on Shiism and Global Affairs at Harvard's Weatherhead Center for International Affairs.
Wow, that's a lot going on. Just waiting on my system to kind of let us back in here. Let's see. Appreciate your patience. See what we're doing with the BRICS nations. See what's happening with the BRICS. They just had a summit. Yeah, see what was the outcome, what's the plans. We know Russia running the show too. Let me see here. I don't know what's going on with my system tonight.
Tactics.
I bet they the one who's running the show, the lawyers. So after we read it, we can sign it, right? But you see what either they said they foaming at the mouth. Reaction from radical leftists is worth it. Man, it is a lot going on in the USA and obviously in the whole wide world. Hurricanes. We talking about historic, and then you got all these freak of nature incidents from hurricanes to tsunamis and tornadoes. And then you got the weather weapons, right? Everybody's talking about that. So you got that stuff going on. You got Iran, his Hezbollah. You got Israeli, U.S. It's thick over there. Then you got the Ukraine's bleeding us dry over here in the U.S. They just all of this stuff is just putting us in a very interesting situation. Say, will CBS release a transcript? But there's so much going on. This Trump transcript of the fraudulent interview with Comrade Kamala Harris. They changed her answer in order to make Kamala look intelligent rather than dumb as a rock. This may be the biggest scandal in broadcast history. CBS must get the transcript out now. And I don't get it. I don't like Trump, man, because the way he talk. Hey, listen, man, we don't like the way y'all talk. Breaking. Former FBI Director James Comey says that former President Trump is coming for the FBI and Department of Justice 15 hours ago. Well, he ought to be. Oh, that wasn't Trump. That was whatever. What is this? Fast food is a part of American culture. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But that doesn't mean it has to be unhealthy, that we can't make better choices. Did you know that McDonald's used to be, let's say, used to use beef tallow to make their fries from 1940 until phasing it out in flavor of seed oils in the 90s. This switch was made because saturated animal fats were thought to be unhealthy, but we have since discovered that seed oils are one of the driving causes of the obesity epidemic. We need to do a podcast on that because we definitely got a product um, and to help counter that obesity situation. But anyways, interestingly enough, this began to drastically rise around the same time fast food restaurants switched from beef tallow to seed oil and fries. People who enjoy a burger with fries on a night out aren't to blame, and America shouldn't have every right to eat out at a restaurant without being unknowingly poisoned by heavily subsidized seed oils. It's time to make frying oil tallow again. I like it. Why not use grapeseed oil? Um, I think at this point though, RFK Jr. I think at this point you just want to throw the whole industry away. It's like you gotta throw the whole hip hop music and you gotta throw it all away because they didn't compromised everything. That's all I'm saying. They compromised everything. The food industry's bold, the entertainment industry's bold. Um, oh man, it's my what's going on here? Oh, okay, I see what's going on. But you just gotta kind of throw the whole industry away, bro. Well, my bad. I thought we was. I thought y'all could see my screen. My system is acting very suspicious tonight. Um, man, I got multiple screens going. But no, seriously, we gotta throw the whole industry away. We gotta throw the whole industry away at this point. Um, the entertainment industry, all of it. It's all bold. I just seen TLC a post. I know it's probably old. Y'all seen it too. I seen the post from TLC was like, yeah, Clyde Davis, they was robbing us. I don't know if she said his name, but it was like, who are these people taking advantage of vulnerable people? Like, and that's why we have a problem with the DNC policies because wherever those policies exist, you got poor schools, no banks, no no thriving entrepreneurship environment. It's just all regulated to choke you out and die. You know what I mean? And then blame it on somebody else why the provocateurs are being, are getting filthy rich, like legendary rich, like generational rich. So it's a terrible formula, really. But you can see it. That's what I wanted to say. It's obvious. It's like it's not hard. It's not hard to put these things together because you can see the pattern in practice. Let me get to some bricks information, but JFK, I think for your constituents and stuff like that, you're on the right path. But the whole industry is to be really reformed. The whole industry itself. We shouldn't have poison in our communities. We talk about the opioid addiction. Let's talk about the food addiction. And we keep calling it food, but it's not food. It's just an addiction. Look at everybody's, like you said. So it's actually not an epidemic. It should be, well, like I said, pandemic is global. So epidemic is correct. We're definitely an obesity epidemic, and not just obesity, just bad health, just bad health. And it again, we've been campaigning and fighting against this stuff forever. You look at these terrible market places, groceries, supposed to be grocery stores located in the vulnerable communities, making millions of dollars, and they're not going to let their children consume the products that's in these stores in the local communities. So it's absolutely atrocious and a nightmare and a crime against humanity. It's actually that for sure. It's definitely unconstitutional. That's for sure. I just say, wow, just throw the whole hip hop industry away. Throw it all away. Throw it all away because it's based on lies, ideologies, idol worship, fake, false ideologies, idol worshiping. Um, You know what I mean? It's just it's not a good platform. As we can see, whether it's Puff Daddy, Harvey Weinstein, whether it's Epstein and his crew, whether it's Clyde Davis and his crew, whether it's the Biden crime family and their crew, whether it's the Obamas and the Bushes. I mean, it don't. You can go all the way back. You go all the way back, man. It's just it's time for reform. That's what MAGA is about. Again, it's about making America great again, where we actually, where everybody actually, not everybody, but society here, the American society, respected the Constitution. That Constitution respected your rights. It made sure that these people understood that no, you got a right to be who you are, to grow that idea, to be as big as you want to be, as far as successful as you want to be. But you have the tools. The tools are available. The environment is set up in such a way where it supports whatever you're trying to do for the good of yourself, family, and the nation. This stuff that we got here now, man, it is. But the food industry is trash, period. And it's killing people. You know what I'm saying? And that's why you got to get to, www.brotherl.com, because you got to get to that book, Brother L Consulting Services. We got a great health income protection product. Great health package. You guys know that. We all know that forever. We got, well, not with the health income protection product, but the other health holistic products we got. You guys been on that forever. But you gotta get your hands on it, because if you're consuming this US diet, you're in trouble. You're already sick. It's a guarantee. Now, I'm not putting a spell on you. I'm saying we can see what the brother's saying. It's fast food is a part of the American culture. And he's talking about this industry has been compromised and invaded. It makes sense. Like, if I don't like you, I'm gonna invade your system and then corrupt it, compromise it. And unfortunately, the whole nation is consuming this stuff. Not the whole nation, but the majority for sure. Let me see if I got some information on the BRICS pulled up. I think I do. System is acting crazy. Let's see what we got here.
The world's economy. The BRICS bloc has now doubled its number and is set to expand further. So what's drawing these countries together? And can BRICS offer a counterbalance to the existing world order? This is Inside Story. More than 40% of the world's population are assembling in the southwestern city of Kazan, the 16th BRICS. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Hashim Mahalbarra. Russia is set to host its biggest foreign policy event ever. Leaders representing more than 40% of the world's population are assembling in the southwestern city of Kazan. The 16th BRICS summit will have 5 new members, doubling the group's strength to 10. Leaders from several other countries are also attending. Some of them, like Turkey and Malaysia, have already applied to join the growing alliance. The event gives President Vladimir Putin an opportunity to signal to the West that he has not been isolated because of the war in Ukraine. It's also an occasion for other member states to amplify their voices and policies. So what's behind the rapid expansion of this bloc, and can it become a challenge to the existing global order? We'll get to our guests in a moment, but first, this report from Kulsum Sharif.
The Russian city of Kazan is preparing to host the 16th annual BRICS summit. It's the bloc's first meeting with 5 new members, as it doubles its membership to 10 in less than 2 decades of its existence. Many say its expansion shows its growing global importance.
BRICS is the voice of the global South in these multilateral platforms where the West dominate. Really, BRICS can take us out of that.
BRICS was set up in 2006 with a desire to be a geopolitical counterweight to the West. Brazil, Russia, China, and India were the founding members. Since then, it's expanded to include South Africa in 2010, and Egypt, Iran, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates were invited to join the bloc last year. While Riyadh is yet to formally confirm, several other countries have applied for membership.
The beauty of BRICS is that it doesn't put too many obligations on you, right? There are not that many strings attached really for being part of the BRICS. And at the same time, there might be interesting opportunities coming your way, including just having more face time with all of these leaders.
The meeting comes at a time when Russia is stepping up its attacks in Ukraine, and while President Vladimir Putin faces an arrest warrant for war crimes issued by the International Criminal Court last year. When Moscow wants to present the summit as evidence that Western efforts to isolate it have failed. Ahead of the summit, Putin said BRICS and not the West will drive global economic growth.
The total GDP of the BRICS Association is more than 60 trillion, and the total share of the global gross product confidently exceeds that of the so-called G7 countries, and it continues to grow.
Russia also wants other countries to work with it to overhaul the global financial system and end the dominance of the US dollar.
BRICS is perceived as an alternative to the dollar system. It offers some alternative ways of carrying out economic and financial transactions. Russia proposes to use some kind of new currency, which could allow national currencies to be converted into a new unit of payment. It will reportedly be digital money.
Putin has also invited Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to the summit, where Israel's war on Gaza is expected to be discussed. The Russian leader has reaffirmed his government support for a two-state solution. Kulsum Sharif, Al Jazeera, for Inside Story.
Your child needs these three key factors to get into an Ivy League or top 25.
Let's bring in our guests. In Moscow, Andrei Fedorov, former Deputy Foreign Minister of Russia. In Tehran, Hassan Ahmadian, professor at the University of Tehran who specializes in Iranian foreign policy. In Hereford, in the UK, Mark Seddon, director of the Center for United Nations Studies at the University of Buckingham and was a veteran UN correspondent. Welcome to the program. Andrei, is it the sense in Russia that BRICS has all it takes to become a key geopolitical player?
I would like to say that in Moscow by Russian President Putin, this summit of BRICS is considering as a turning point towards creation of multipolar world. Of course, the idea to make BRICS as a serious political player is important, but at the same time, it's a contradiction with its original goal to make it effective economic mechanism. And there is a situation when some of the countries like India are against so-called mechanical enlargement of BRICS, being afraid that political side of BRICS will be prevailing. So that's why it's very important to find that this summit balance between political interests and economic realities.
Hassan, when you listen to Iranian officials over the last few years, they've been always saying that we need something that could serve as a counterweight to the dominance of the Western key players and the Americans. Could this moment be the moment that the Iranians have been waiting for many years?
I think that's exactly what the Iranians are speaking of, looking at BRICS as a organization outside the U.S. sphere of influence and its domination, and that gives it strategic weight in Iran's thinking. It gives Iran opportunities, the potential that it carries economically, politically, and financially, gives Iran opportunities to break out of the box that the United States has been trying with its Western allies to box Iran in. So the reality that the organization is out of the domination of the United States, it's beyond the U.S., so-called U.S.-led world order, is of strategic importance to Tehran, and the Iranians have been vocal about it on an official level. They have been trying to seize this opportunity and the different layers that it provides Iran with, be it economic, financial, and politically, as a way of channeling their policies, and with regards to the BRICS states, but also with regards to other issues of importance to Iran and its foreign policy, be it the Middle East or other regions. They have been also using the podium and political capacity that it provides to further their priorities as well.
Mark, you've spent many years covering the UN. Now you ask people in this part of the world, in particular, about the US, they will tell you their bias is more pronounced than ever. You would ask them about the UN, they will tell you one of the most inefficient organizations in the world. Could this perception serve as a trigger for many countries to say, you know what, in BRICS we could have a genuine alternative to a failing international world order?
Well, yes, I mean, I obviously covered the UN as a journalist, but I also worked for Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. So I've been fortunate enough really to see things on both sides. And I think it's not too difficult to see right now that the paralysis in the UN Security Council, principally over Israel right now, and the ceasefire motions that have been vetoed repeatedly by the United States, and of course also the Russia-Ukraine war, all of these issues have paralyzed the UN. So it's not necessarily the UN's fault, it's the fault of the member states. That saying, I mean, I think that many countries in the West don't quite appreciate how they are currently viewed in the global South, and that this paralysis at the UN also feeds through to this perception that really Western countries are being incredibly hypocritical, on the one hand calling for Russia to end its war in Ukraine, but on the other hand to continue supplying Israel with all the weapons it may wish for what is clearly a genocide in the Palestinian territory. So, I mean, I looked at the British press this morning. There's very little mention of BRICS, but that does show you something of the way in which Western media tends to be very inward-looking. But to my mind, it needs to wake up, because there is a reaction against this idea of a unipolar world. And the global South is fed up of being lectured to, and it wants to have its own organizations, and good luck to it.
Andre, many people all over the world are frustrated with the world order, but yet they are to see BRICS achieve what they're hoping to see happen in the near future. Could you give me an idea about what could be the first issue that BRICS should tackle and succeed in bringing about a tangible result for people to start finally say, we trust BRICS?
First of all, BRICS should solve serious economic problems in this modern world. It's problems of equal trade, issue of sanctions, and many other things. If BRICS will be capable to do something in economic life, for example, in the future to create not maybe own currency, but own economic financial system which will be stable from outside world interference, it could lead also to growing political influence of BRICS. So economic issues should be on the front page of BRICS in the coming future. Without it, nothing will be done.
Hassan, for the Iranians who face huge geopolitical challenges these days with the Americans, with the Israelis, their allies in the region have been suffering major setbacks, could BRICS serve as a key ally that could stand with Iran if it faces more and more challenges, particularly against the backdrop of the Israeli response?
In just over 2 minutes, I'm going to show you how I created this ebook using a feature called WordGenie.
The Western-dominated organizations that, as previous speakers have pointed out, have been very hypocritical when it comes to issues in the region, including when it comes to Iran. They deal with the other issues that are more linked to their security differently, such as the Ukrainian issue. So for the Iranians, having been at the receiving end of U.S. sanctions, unilateral sanctions, as opposed to international sanctions that existed before the nuclear deal, Iran is fed up with this U.S.-led so-called world order, and it's seeking any opportunity. And obviously, the BRICS provides a big opportunity for Iran to deal with issues that the United States and the West, collective West, have tried to push Iran out of. For the Iranians, it's important to look at the potentialities that this organization brings about. Also, it's important to see the opportunities that are provided by it economically and financially, taking sanctions into account. Also, it's important to look at it from a security perspective, knowing that the United States has been supporting a full-fledged war by the Israelis on Gaza and Lebanon, and potentially attacks on Iran. The Iranians also look at organizations such as the BRICS to balance off that unilaterality that the United States is basically infusing the world system.
Mark, isn't it a little bit naive to think that BRICS could become a genuine voice of the voiceless when you have two key members of this alliance, the Russians and the Chinese, obviously seeing this as a tool to expand their geopolitical leverage?
Well, that may be, but I also noticed that BRICS is attracting lots of new member countries. Lots of countries want to join it. I think there does seem to be a desire also to look beyond the kind of free market hyperliberalism of the American and the British, the Anglo-American capitalistic model, if you like. I mean, it's just not working. So there's that. There's the economic alternative that's coming, and especially from the global south, from the emerging powers, Brazil, South Africa, and others. But also, I think you've got to also look at what's happening in the what people loosely call the West. I mean, it's quite possible we may have a Trump presidency in a month's time, which will, of course, alarm an awful lot of the European governments. I don't think that many of the European governments, I mean, it's almost going back slightly to what I was saying before, but can quite appreciate how isolated they have become, made themselves become, because of their stance principally over what is happening in Gaza and also now in Lebanon. And so this constant support for whatever American foreign and defense policy may dictate is not helping them at all. And so there is this reaction, I think, against a unipolar world, very much.
Andre, you spoke about the economic factor as a defining issue for BRICS. Do you think that the proposal by the Russians to start with a grain trading exchange as the first step, that if successful, it could convince people to move forward towards putting together more financial mechanisms that could serve as alternative to the similar organizations such as the International Monetary Fund?
AI error resolution is a new debugging experience powered by artificial intelligence.
Yes, it's one of the goals, and Russia is supporting this idea to have within BRICS own stable financial system, which cannot be disturbed by any sanctions, by any foreign interference, and which can really develop, first of all, trade with the use of local currencies, of national currencies, without using of US dollar. It's a long process. Don't expect that it will happen overnight, but this process is on the way.
Hassan, when it comes to the Middle East in particular, members do not really see eye to eye when it comes to how to move forward. Could BRICS today become a tool to enforce, for example, ceasefire in the region, could influence geopolitical decisions, could put an end to the instability, or is it a long way to go before we get to that point?
I think it's a long way. Basically, the BRICS is not a monolith, obviously. There are countries with close ties to the West, parties to the BRICS. But there are those rising powers, and there are those who are sanctioned. There are this group basically is the party that is pushing for a parallel mechanism to deal with crises. That includes Russia, Iran, and to a large extent China. Others don't want maybe to risk their relations in getting so close to the idea of a parallel order. But these countries have a common view on how things should change in not only the Middle East, but around the world. In the Middle East, the so-called rules-based system did not work. If anything, the main pillars of it, namely the United States and the West that established it, have helped and aided Israel in its atrocities in Gaza, in Lebanon, and elsewhere in the region. And no matter what they did, what the Israelis did, they kept receiving what they needed to do what they were doing, and still they are doing. So that is something that is not working, basically. These countries are thinking about something parallel that can change the equation, change many of the parameters that have blocked the effectiveness of the international system. And I think that's a huge goal that cannot happen very easily. It's not a short-term goal. There are huge challenges. There is the competition between the collective West and the BRICS as well that we will see more unfolding in the future. So there are lots of challenges, but steps have been taken, and I think it's moving ahead.
Mark, yes, you talk to people and they will tell you that the UN's veto power is not fairly utilized. It's there just to advance the agenda of the powerful countries, that the Security Council has never been genuine about the need to change things on the ground. But yet you get a sense that these are mechanisms that can operate. When it comes to BRICS, you don't really get a sense of clarity about the tools they have to implement new realities on the ground, that if they decide tomorrow, let's solve this particular problem, how can we do it?
Well, I can see that amongst many BRICS member states, there's also a commonality of view about what needs to happen with the United Nations. It's not the power of the veto per se, it's how it's being abused. And I have to say that over the past 2 to 3 years, Russia has used the veto a great deal. America has used the veto a great deal. America has been backed up by my country, Britain. I think if BRICS countries can come together and push for the desperately needed UN reform, then the BRICS are certainly onto something. Because not only are many BRICS member states talking about a different world economic order, but once they start talking about a different political and security order, we're onto something in many, many ways. And I think that UN reform is key. The fact, for instance, that there's no African member state that is a permanent member of the Security Council. It's the same for Latin America. We know how it looks and what has got to change. The UN is fixed as it was in 1945 with the defeat of Nazi Germany. Well, it's time for change. And I think that we're increasingly seeing much stronger and actually empowered voices. And most certainly what we're seeing in the Middle East, more than anything, is empowering people. And by the way, I think when it comes to the general public, especially in Europe, they take a very different view over many of these issues than their governments. And so this idea that just because the Western press is not interested in reporting on BRICS, that somehow people in my country are not happy to see members of the Global South and other countries coming together and actually challenging some of these Western nostrums, I think I think a lot of people do support them.
Andre, this is not the first time that someone came out and said we need to change reality on the ground. The non-alliance movement in the 60s and the 70s appealed to many people because it was widely perceived to be as a challenge to the prevailing world order, but it failed because some of its ideas were so far-fetched. How can you maintain BRICS attractive when ultimately you don't have a bank, you don't have a currency, you don't have a common fund, you don't have a sense of unity that you could sell to the people?
First of all, I would like to say that BRICS will never be a replacement for United Nations. Mm-hmm. And I fully agree that BRICS can influence on the possible reform within the United Nations, especially concerning a Security Council. But as I said, for BRICS, it's very important to create serious network, real network, which includes financial mechanisms, communication system of consultations, and many, many things. BRICS should not be organization of summits. BRICS should be organization of concrete projects, which is still not the case. BRICS needs a number of serious global projects, especially economic projects, to identify itself as effective organization, but not only as I said, organization of summits.
Hassan, how do the Iranians see the future of BRICS when it expands? Is it going to be the platform that they have been looking forward to seeing put into place that could respond to some of their grievances, concerns about their position and their place on the global arena?
That's definitely is the case for the Iranians, as I said. The unilateral sanctions, the unilateral actions on the part of the United States and its allies in the region vis-a-vis Iran, violating the nuclear deal that was part of the international law because it was ratified by the United Nations Security Council. All of that told the Iranians that, that order has failed Iran. Iranians have been trying to, further their agenda and their policy within that framework to this day, but still they are seeing opportunities coming up as a result of, the other countries facing the same challenges that Iran has faced vis-a-vis the United States and the West. Russia now is under immense sanctions. Iran is under sanctions. China has seen its share, and I think moving forward we'll see more. This creates the club of the sanction that is a huge club, and economics, geopolitics, and other aspects can be dealt with collectively within this framework. But not to exaggerate it is important because even regional organizations such as the European Union, it took 4 decades for it to have a common currency, and lots of issues are still to be resolved within parties that are member to the BRICS to move to a more coherent vision as to where things should move. But all in all, I think there is that common, rather broad, common vision of reforming the UN, tackling issues beyond the West. And
I have one last question, if you don't mind, Hassan. Okay, Mark, BRICS resonates among left-leaning governments, particularly in Africa and Latin America. When governments there turn right or conservatives, I don't think they're willing to do anything that could be seen as an affront or a challenge to the Americans. So do you think that this could undermine the chances for BRICS to stand solid in the future?
Paper forms belong in a museum, not your office. FormStack makes it easy to automate your work so you can send paper processes packing.
Well, I don't know. I suspect, you talk about the European Union. as our colleague in Tehran was just doing there. I mean, essentially, you've got lots of different political persuasions running European countries, and most countries, apart from, of course, mine, which left, seem to be quite happy to be within the EU. Large organisations have got to be constructed really to be big enough for all of their members and to take account of the different types of government they may have. But there's a commonality of interest. We've talked about some of this when it comes to the United Nations, the rule of international law, all of these things that actually came out of the end of the Second World War that our grandparents fought so hard to establish are now being sort of ripped up in front of us. And so I think that there are many countries around the world looking for a new kind of stability in terms of peace and security. They don't see necessarily America as an honest broker in the Middle East anymore. And they also look at the economic model that we've had for the past 40, 50 years, and also since the collapse of the Soviet Union, and which generated an even faster rush to an extreme free market kind of model that does not really suit most countries. And so there's a lot of opportunities for change, I think.
Mark Siddon, Hassan Ahmadian, Andrea Fedorova, really appreciate your insight. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you too for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com.
And I thank you all for watching the Brother Ill show. We'll chop it up on the next show. Go a little bit more in depth into some other global updates dealing with Colonel McGregor and breaking this thing down a little bit more detail. We wanted to kind of tap into some of the BRICS movement, and I learned a lot this evening. I learned a whole lot, really a whole lot. They're doing a lot of good work for their benefit, but they got a lot more work to do if their agenda is to replace the dollar, create balance of power, and try to push for reforms on the United Nations platform, because they ain't doing right. Everybody's taking advantage. China's doing their thing. The U.S. vetoing everybody with the backing of Britain. And so it's really for the viewers. You got to study the organs of the UN, all of its functions, its offices, its security councils, all of the major players, how it was founded. And it's another manipulation. I guess you would say these things are to be founded for the intent to do good, create peace and stability globally, and all that stuff. But then it ends up being manipulated, end up becoming compromised, basically. So it's written one way, it's set up one way, but it's functioning an entirely different way. And a lot of the world is upset about what's taking place in what have took place in Gaza. And now it's breaking down to a greater regional conflict. And that's one of the reasons why, these nations is coming together, like the nations, the 10 nations and BRICS now, I think it's way more than that, but my point is, people are not happy about that situation, and it's a problem for people, and they tried to do some things through the UN to create ceasefires and all this other stuff, and the United States is 1 minute is, it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? So, for these nations, what would you do if you was a Palestinian, if you were in a situation over in Russia, right? So on one hand, here go people that's being abused. On the other hand, here go a superpower that they're saying executed an incursion, illegal incursion into the Ukraine. But then we find biolabs. We got reports of ethnic cleansing, trying to force assimilation, which is an international law violation. Neo-Nazis, all kind of stuff, right? All kind of stuff that we got our hand in puppet governments with coups, and it's like intelligence is somebody leaking something. They leaking the stuff out about not you, and I mean the stuff gonna get out here. But my point is, it's a lot going on. It is truly a lot going on. So I can understand why BRICS is doing what they're doing and all of its participants. They basically view us as a bully. U.S. government as a bully. Y'all sitting there doing a manipulator, a bully. What you call them? Narcissistic or narcissist, however you pronounce it. But it's us. That's what they're trying to put on the U.S. government in this behavior, inappropriate misconduct all over the world for years. And so it appears we force people to come together and come up with a new plan and invent new systems to do business without involving the United States dollar as an attack on the U.S. At least we're gonna perceive it as that too. That's one funny thing, because it is that is like people ain't buying what you're selling. Now how you gonna feed your family? It's tight because people not buying what we selling, and because they seen our work. They seen our work. They like, nah, y'all out cold with the sanctions. Y'all out cold with everything. But I learned a lot tonight, and I hope you learned something too. And it was very informative. BRICS got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do. We got to get some things in order here domestically. But until then, continue to visit us at brotherill.com. Thank y'all and have a blessed night. Peace.